If we're able to. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Karen Cameron. I'm CEO of the Ontario Public Transit Association, and it's my honor to be welcoming you today to this in the latest series of our Opta Live webinars. This is one of our key benefits of membership, and we can't do it without the active participation of business members like MTB Transit Solutions. So thank you for carving out this time out of your day. You will notice that we are recording this webinar. It will be available on demand afterwards. We are going to have an active Q&A at the end. So please, as you're taking in this presentation, please be thinking of the questions that you want to ask at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to a good friend of Opta and a board member of Opta. Tom Glover is with MTB Transit Solutions. He has with him today another good friend of Opta, Dave Partington. And so I'm also looking forward to this webinar. I always learn so much from these guys. Tom, can I turn it over to you, please?
Most certainly. Thank you very much, Karen and Hina. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and thanks in advance for coming out and taking the time of your day to go through this presentation. I'm Tom Glover. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for MTB Transit Solutions. I've been with the group for approximately 35 years. Love it here, love the family, love the industry, and I'm really happy that you've attended. We can go through this presentation and hopefully get something out of this. I'd like to introduce Dave Partington for those who don't know him. So Dave, you got a second?
For you, Tom, more than a second. So my name's Dave Partington. I'm ancient. I started with the TTC hundreds of years ago, went to YRT, started my little consulting company. I sit on the advisory board for MTB Transit Solutions and help them out where I can. And a fair bit of experience in my career on bus refurbishment and life extension at both TTC and at York Region Transit. So glad to meet everybody. Hope that you have a great hour and a half.
Thanks, Dave. So before we get into the presentation, we just kind of run through, like, we know in this day and age, a lot of agencies are struggling. Politicians want electric and hydrogen vehicles. Ridership is up, in some cases higher than pre-COVID levels. New buses, they're expensive, more expensive than ever. New vehicle purchase and parts supply chains are struggling to meet demands. Reliability and consistency are not what we're accustomed to. So in this presentation today, we're going to hopefully give you some insight on some options. So this presentation is about extending the life of your existing fleet, which is a very known commodity to you. A vehicle you have confidence in. Supply chains are more stable and secure. Your technicians are already trained on them, and your KPIs can be met when you meet the customer's expectations. So we'll get into this. So I'll get into who we are. So MTB, we are the largest independent bus repair facility in Canada. We're very proud of that. We started in the mid-70s. We're pushing 50 years of business experience here. I'm sorry about that. We've worked on over like 25,000 buses. That's repairs, refurbishment, collision, and that number is staggeringly just grows day by day. We can't believe how busy we are, and we're very happy and very fortunate to be saying this. In our group, we have approximately 55 plus skilled workers. These workers are team members, are 310Ts, 310Bs, apprentices, qualified painters, qualified welders, very experienced refurbish technicians. A lot of these employees have been with us. We've got one guy celebrated 45 years. Our average tenure is about 10 to 12 years in our group, and we're very proud of that. Our facilities, there's two that encompass 110,000 square feet. These are all state of the art. They're purpose-built facilities. Within that, we have spray booths, two of them. We have frame racks. We have hoists in every bay, and we can kind of tackle anything. If there's a bus here for a period of time, we can attend to it and we can facilitate it. In the building, there's 60 working bays. As I mentioned, we have spray booths and frame racks within that. We're very proud to be ISO certified, which is basically a stamp of approval for transit operators, so they know we have a quality process in place. Our management team is quite experienced. I've been at it for a day or two. In the course of the 6 of us, we have combined experience over 100 years. I think Gara, our president, is the youngest one in the group, but he brings forth a lot of leadership and guidance, and we're very happy to have him on board. So our business lines, we basically have 4 buckets of business lines. Refurbishment is the large one. So refurbishment, as you know or don't know, is basically overhaul existing buses to extend their life. We'll get into the costs and all that, but it's basically less than half the price of a new bus for a full-blown refurb, and that's going to extend your bus life up to 18 years. We also do fire, collision repair. That's a pretty large portion of our work as well. We do collision repairs for transit authorities. Fire recoveries, don't really want to see many of them. Not as popular as they used to be, but that is a good part of our work. And we do highway stuff as well as, like, we have highway customer base as well as transit customer base. And that keeps us pretty hopping too. We support the OEMs in every way, and that's every OEM. We help them with pre-delivery and post-delivery inspections or warranty issues. We do a lot of paint work for the OEMs. We do a lot of battery replacements over time with the OEMs. We help them out in any way, shape, or form, and that's every OEM in Canada. Project work, that is a growing thing as well. We're doing a lot more safeties and services for a lot of agencies, because we know they're kind of bound with less talent. The buses take a lot longer to service and maintain because of all the systems within. So that's a pretty big part of our work as well. So we have the experience, as I mentioned, we've been at it for quite some time. We've probably refurbished a little over 1,000 buses throughout Canada, United States. Majority, of course, is throughout Canada. We've touched every bus that's been in service, including the ones that are obsolete now, like the Daimlers, for instance. So the New Flyer, we've touched all brands. We've done multiple repairs to them. Refurbishment, we see a lot of the XD40s and XD60s now entering the courses for refurbishment, as well as more of the Nova LFSs coming into the groove for refurbishment. We've done a lot of work on the highway coaches, the MCI D4500s, the 4505s, the smaller ones. Done a lot of work with ADL through the Go Transit programs on the double-deck coaches. And of course, the Van Hool, the 40 and 60-foot low-floor transit buses that YRT operate. We've helped those be rejuvenated and cleaned up and refurbished as well. Our clients are all bus people. Our main client base is municipalities. We do work for pretty well all the agencies within the GTA and Ontario region. We do have capability to transport the buses back and forth with certified drivers, or tow or float them, whatever, or however the state the bus is in. We do a lot of work with the OEMs, as I mentioned. We help them out with their pains and woes. And of course, the private coach operators, we're fortunate to have them in our clientele base too, because they do basically what the transit authorities do, just in a different bucket of business. So as I mentioned, our facility, it's a large independent bus facility. We have approximately 10 acres here. Like I said, it's all secured and monitored. There's lots of parking here. We're not leaving clients' buses out on the road for vandals to go by or to disrupt traffic. Everything's basically stored and tightly secured. Everything is monitored here. Like I say, we have a lot of indoor space. So if it's a prolonged repair, the bus, if it's torn down, it's in our shop, not out in the elements getting destroyed. We're in a fantastic location on Highway 401 in Milton, basically at the 401 in James Snow, but near the 407 interchange. So we have accessibility to many of our clients and vice versa. They can get here pretty quick as well. So we have really good location to service all our clientele. We also have a warehouse that's fully monitored and secured. We have 6,500 square feet in there, so we can store all the products needed for refurbishment programs within house and allocate it to the buses, order it ahead. If we are awarded the work, that's the way we work. We deal with our client to say, okay, here's the schedule. Let's get ordering, bring the bus in at this time because all the parts are in-house. So it's working really well, and we're always improving on the systems throughout that as well. Quality assurance is a big thing with us. We like to make sure everything's done the way we want it to be done, and that is basically do it right the first time and do it properly. And our senior leaders know that. Even like the majority of our staff know that, other than the newer employees, but they're taught that. They're taught not to cut corners. If they see something out of the ordinary, that's brought forth to their supervisors for us to react to it. We test everything. We have lots of checklists for our ISO programs, and that all goes out to the customer as well. So we don't hide anything. And that's one thing we're very proud of, as well as we stick to basically our culture. And our culture is do the job the first time and do it right. We also present a lot of, we present weekly updates to all our customers. So if they have a program in place with us, they'll get a weekly report. We like to be transparent with all of our customer base. Our weekly reports would have the status of the vehicle. Have we had any burps or hiccups? Is there an issue? That's basically put onto the reports for discussion purposes. If the schedules are going to alter in any way, the customer is aware of that. So that is weekly. We always want our customers to visit on site, but a lot of people can't. It's too far, or they don't have time in their day. So these are kind of like a flagship to go out every week, every Friday. All our customer base gets these reports, and I'm sure that a few people on this call have seen these things. So I hope it helps. And like I say, we're always open to change. If it's something there that I'm not covering, or you want to see more, then I'm open to give more information out to as well. So what is midlife refurbishment? That's what we're going to get into. A lot of transit authorities are already into this. They have been for years. And they will kind of explain the advantages and the processes of midlife refurbishment and why it can be very beneficial to agencies to adopt this. So that being said, what is a typical midlife refurbishment? So the buses are usually assessed. A lot of people that have never been into this program before, they don't really know what they're looking for. We do. And there's lots of other transit agencies that have the cookie cutter processes that they could share with you. I know we have lots of them too. So what we basically look at is we want to make this bus last at year 8 or 10 to year 18. So what do we have to do to that bus to make it hit that mark? So the structural integrity is always checked. and all the corroded structures we place as necessary. That's the big thing. And that would be including removing all the exterior panels and fixtures to make sure you get into that structure and make sure you get a good look at it. All the floor covering and floor subfloors removed so you can look at that structure, make sure it's integrity sound, or is it rotted? A lot of that time, that rust hides behind all these panels and flooring. You're not aware of it till you get there. So that's why this process is in place. So the shopping list can go on forever on a refurb. I wouldn't say forever, but there's a lot of things to consider. There's operator seat overhaul. We always like to enhance the operator, make sure he's got a comfortable place to sit and operate because that's his office for 8 hours a day. We want to make sure all the HVAC and all the heating is working fine for that operator and the passengers, of course. You can throw in suspension overhauls, steering component overhauls, passenger seat replacement. That's kind of a given because they look kind of tired and worn out. Same with the flooring and all that sort of stuff. And by the time this bus is torn down, you're definitely refinishing because you basically ripped it all apart. One thing we always like to do is try to get to in front of the transit or even more of the maintenance side and find out their pain points. What are your pain points? Why are your technicians going off-site to fix this bus on the road? Is it a blown hose? Is it a bad door operator? Is it sensitive edge switches? Is it whatever? Is it sensors? Incorporate that into the refurb. So when that bus goes back to you in a completed state, those things are nullified. Hopefully you won't have to go near those things on service calls, just disrupt your mechanic flow within the shop. So on the refurb process, we want to extend the bus life by 8 to 10 years. So at the 12-year life, we want on the 12-year expected life, at about year 8 or 10, that's when the structural integrity usually starting to falter and getting quite concernable. So we suggest at year 8 to 10, we're going to do a structural overhaul. So then we do the midlife refurbishment, structural overhaul, midlife refurbishment, and that'll bring you to year 18. Then at year 18, what we're looking at now is kind of a life refurb or life extension. I'll get into a few more points on what that's all about further in the presentation, but we see a need for this day and age because of the way the industry is today, which we're going to delve into a little bit more throughout this presentation as well. So the refurb program is about an 8-week turnaround on a standard structural midlife refurbishment. We tear it down, we repair the structure, we get into mechanical components like the blowers, the heater motors, suspension components, like I said, whatever's on your wish list or on the scope list. In the mechanical side, if we're doing engines, transmission, and axles, we might bump another week onto this process because it's just the labor involved. But the structural side is about an 8-week thing. In week 4, all the rebuild starts. You start putting all the new flooring in. You put in all the rebuilt components. You send it off to prep and paint for kind of week 5. Then in week 6, then 7 and 8, you're kind of reassembling it, testing all the systems, dolling it up, getting all the branding back on it, and ready set for the customer to review and inspect. So what can refurbishment of transit assets provide? Definitely it extends your capital dollars. Since COVID-19, there's been a tremendous strain on transit operations. You've got to consider this option to use for government funding because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of Ontario Transits that are doing refurbishments and they know it's worthwhile. And we'll get into the math a little bit later too on how that all equates. So you want to overhaul the existing buses, extend their useful life. And as I mentioned, they're basically got a 12-year design life, but you refurbish it to an 18-year extended life. And then, like I say, we'll show you how that math works at the end of it all, because in the economics, you can refurbish a bus at a quarter to a third of the cost of a new bus, especially this day and age, because prices of new equipment is gone up substantially. And it's is going to maximize and extend your aging fleet and basically maximize your dollar. And of course, there's always an environmental benefit. Fewer buses go to the landfill. That's kind of green. And there's also like you're not getting anything for that bus when you basically sell it off, because they're basically going to scrappers now. Mind you, we've seen different things happen now, which I will also get into further in some other slides here. So supply chain challenges are a big thing. Lots of challenges in the supply chain. These are just a few of the points. The conditions out there are still not very solid. They're slowly improving, but we know they're not. I think everyone sits in that same boat. It's causing like several months worth of delays on new bus deliveries. The new bus purchases for diesel, when I look at it now, I'm not buying them, but when I see the prices out there, they've escalated approximately 30+% since 2021. I know they used to be sitting around 600 grand. I think they're close to 900 grand. So that's a big chunk of money. And the newer in-service units, a lot of times the parts they require are having long lead times because the new bus production orders are depleting that supply chain. So the solution, hey, let's go back to the basics of it. Let's enhance what's out there. The parts through a refurbishment program, we're obviously dealing with an older unit at the 8-10 year mark, and the parts are kind of day to day. Everyone has them. They're very common in the supply chain. There's lots of aftermarket vendors available to supply these parts if that's acceptable to the customer as well. So there's options. We always tend to go to the OEM. But if they can't supply, we're discussing that with our customers. Say, hey, here's the option. Are you in for it? Because the parts are there. So, like I said, there's a lot of always ongoing communication, ongoing discussion to make sure the bus is going to be done on time, as well as the bus that our customer is going to receive is what he expects. So, outsourcing midlife refurbishment, we know. A lot of transits don't have this capability to do this stuff in-house. A lot of quality assurance, dedicated procurement, technical teams are needed. Who has this talent at their disposal? So obviously, the transits don't really have the shop space to handle these things. The processes are very highly labor intensive. They require a large experienced labor force. You've got to stay on these things to get them done rather than pulling your people off to fix out of the bus that need that quicker to get it in service. So it's got to be a production focus rather than maintenance focus. So you've got to be dedicated to do this program and get it done. And you've got to have the people stay on that program to complete it. That way the shop has to be set up for this and to handle the volume to make the process efficient. And not only that, your techs in your shop, they got to carry on the day-to-day repairs and get those buses with the minor repairs and the dings and the broken panel and a bad headlight and a bad pump out back into service to get better fleet deployment. And then again, this updates and this environmental impact is always an issue. So now we're going to kind of step into how and why refurbishment has been adopted by other transit authorities. So we have a small case study, which I'll let Dave take the lead on this. And Dave, if you need me to step in at all, just let me know. But it's just this is kind of where Dave kind of excels. So I'll just let Dave take it away.
I don't know about excelling, Tom, but anyhow, I'll add a couple other points about the scope of work of the midlife. That's also a good opportunity at that particular point at when you're doing the midlife to update any of the technology that's on the vehicle. And my experience is we've used that as an opportunity, as an example, to put in LED lighting in all of the entire system, or from an accessibility perspective, putting in next stop announcement buttons that were in Braille, those kinds of things. The vehicle's off the road, it's going through a refurb, you've got a very detailed scope of work, which is completely flexible. And it allows you then to be able to update your vehicle to the latest norms or standards if that's what you want to do. So it's a good opportunity to do that.
Thanks for adding that, Dave. I meant to include you in on there.
I know, Tom. That's why I'm here to help you, Tom. Anyhow, so the case study. So essentially, when we had some experience at this at both of my locations or both of my previous employers of doing a midlife overhaul. Essentially you're looking not just at the 1 year or the one bus type of thing. You're looking at, over 2 or 3 vehicles, it starts to really kind of sink in as regarding the money savings. So when you take a look at, a 12-year life cycle, which is the design life of the vehicle, you're just saying at every 12 years, you're spending $900,000, and we'll just say 900 because obviously it's going to escalate in the future. And it's every 12 years you then have to budget and replace that particular vehicle. You may or may not want to put, opportunity maintenance in between of doing engine overhauls or transmission overhauls or something like that, in order to get to do proactive maintenance on the vehicle to get it to the 12 years. And that particular point, you retire it, sell it, and replace it. So people that have gone to the 18-year life, are seeing other things. They're taking a look at their vehicle and saying, we can save substantial money over the life of 2 or 3 vehicles. You start then, looking at over the life of 2 or 3 vehicles of just, having a savings of approximately, over $500,000, because what you're doing is you're not replacing it at the 12-year point. You're extending its life to the 18-year point. And so, yes, you may put in incremental things in between. You may put an engine, like we talked about earlier. Some organizations may want to do a reman of their HVAC system somewhere between the 10-year and the 18-year to extend the life of the vehicle. But as you can see through the costing and through the funding, or not funding, but the savings, is that over 2 or 3 vehicles, you're looking at approximately $500,000, $500,000 of savings over that particular point in time. And so, prior to COVID, it was pretty, it was pretty routine. You would buy a bus, you'd budget for the bus, you replace the bus at 12 years. But since COVID, things have kind of the kind of the dynamic has changed, and so it's exceedingly long lead times now to get vehicles. You've got Novabus, I think now is not building any vehicles in the US. It's in Canada only. You've had other bus manufacturers go out of business. Supply chains have been disrupted. It's exceedingly difficult. You have technicians, which is always difficult to get and to retain. You become familiar with those particular vehicles. So there's lots of other positive reasons to consider extending the life of the vehicle from 12 years to 18 years, of having those standards, those norms, those controls put into place. The reality is a lot of us technicians, excuse me, I put myself in that same boat, are getting older, and in moving to a whole different kind of propulsion system of electric can be difficult. And so younger people in the system is also difficult to get and to capture into the 310T apprenticeship programs and mechanics, and retaining them is also difficult. So keeping vehicles for a little longer, gives a lot of, I think, kind of control or steadfastness in your workforce, and maintaining those vehicles and having that kind of continuity and confidence in being able to do that. So there's, sorry, Tom, I threw in some extra things, but
It's okay.
but me, once I start to talk, the thing is that obviously there's savings, but there's also these kind of softer side savings as well when an agency decides to go from a 12-year to an 18-year bus life.
Is that all you got, Dave?
I'm good for a couple more minutes, but no, I think that's good for me, Tom. Thanks.
That's very good. Thank you, Dave. I believe in that math. And like I say, when you add that up over a fleet of 10 to 12 to 40 to 50 buses, there's not that you're going to refurbish every bus, but like I think there's a lot of power there, and there's a lot of savings. So now we're going to get what is end of life extension. We see the demand for this. It's a growing request, and we've kind of created a new solution. We see a lot of transit agencies, not a lot. We see transit agencies actually purchasing pre-owned units to get them through the rising ridership and the demand. So looking at their existing assets is probably the better way to go about it. So what is end of life extension? So again, we're extending their assets past their 18-year lifespan. So we'd assess this on basically a bus by bus basis. If there's more of a number of a fleet or a certain year the transit's looking at, say they're 2014 Novas or 2011 Flyers, the same SR, the same vintage, we kind of know how to treat each bus. So, so the scope would be added to or minimized depending on transit's needs. How long are they going to want these buses to extend out? We're figuring 2, 4, 5 years max. I know there's a gentleman in the group in the audience right now that's involved in this, and they're kind of looking at 5 years because of the current landscape. So again, we're looking at this, and there's corroded structure. We attend to what's needed throughout the unit. It's pretty common from what we're seeing, some lower structure and wheelchair platforms, things like that. Are we going to get doing exterior panels and fixtures? Possibly, depending on the lower structure. Is the interior floor covering, is it bubbling or is it lifting? Does it just need some floor covering in sections, or do we have to get into more of the subfloor? Are we refinishing and exterior branding the unit as necessary? Probably, because we're kind of getting into some of the exterior stuff. I always like to say, okay, the operator seat overall, he's going to drive that for another 5 years. Let's make that operator comfortable. Are your passengers, are they walking into a kind of a worn out looking bus? Are we going to do interior seat upgrades? Maybe yes, maybe no. That's up to the customer and kind of what budget they're looking at. Is this bus going to be out in full service all day, or is it just going to be kind of the after hours? Or like I say, it's probably not going to be your mainstay of the fleet. It's going to pick up all the shorter routes throughout the day. So that's what the customer would decide. But again, it all kind of comes down to what bridging that gap. Like the lead times on OEM vehicles are just like all the OEMs are overwhelmed with orders. The new propulsion area, like who's ready for this? Not many. There's limited sources and available to procure. You see, even in the diesel aspect, things are changing over the next 5 to 6 years, and will it be diesel in 2030? What are you going to buy? Are you going to be set up for the new propulsion era? Like I say, some are and some aren't. Is it happening too fast? So let's see what your existing assets can do and get you to that finish line, or stretch it out till you're ready. So like the benefits basically, like again, you're keeping your existing assets out there for minimal cost for the refurbishment. There's no significant change to your fleet makeup. Your drivers are driving the same bus. Your techs are working on the same bus. So part supply chain, you're still relying on the stuff you know. And like I said, we can tailor those to each transit agency's needs. So that being said, Dave, have you got anything to add to that one?
No, I think, Tom, you've covered it well. I think that if you're a maintenance manager or a director of maintenance or something, budgets are always a pain, and they're helpful, and they can also be not so helpful. And so whenever you have OEMs with it that are long lead times out now, I mean, like I said, before COVID, it was all pretty simple. You had your programs, you had your replacement plans, and you had your budget. And now if I was back where I was before, then it would be a concern now, because now your budgets are way out, because now you have to wait for 2 or 3 or 4 years potentially to get that to get that replacement bus that you had budgeted, say, for 2023 or 2024. And so rather than, just keeping it going, you can now go to budget or go to finance with a plan to say, here's a strategy of moving forward in the long haul. We save money, and we can level off those high points of capital funding, and continue with our existing vehicles in service, but at a higher maintenance level and reliability level and customer satisfaction level.
Well said. Yeah, because I know I'm not a professional on this, but I know when it comes to funding, a lot of the agencies have been funded for a certain type of procurement, be it a clean propelled unit, so they can't go back and buy a diesel bus and all that sort of stuff, and because of the way they're getting their funding. I don't want to say too much on that because I don't know a whole lot about it, but like I say, you people on the call would know more about that than I. But anyway, that's kind of like what it's all about. It's kind of the end in conclusion. I thank you. I'll kind of kill this presentation slide and field some questions if that's good with everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dave. I've mentioned in the chat to everyone, feel free to put your questions in there or to unmute. As I said, we're all friends here. I think we know almost everybody on the call, and this is a great opportunity. Al Pritchard has mentioned in the chat that YRT is relying on MTB for bus refurbishment and is looking at keeping buses for 20 years. Happy to hear more from you, Al, or Dave and Tom, if you want to comment.
Well, I'd like to comment. Thank you for that, Al. YRT has been a great partner of ours, and I know you reached out to us on some extensions because you read the landscape and you're well aware of what YRT's got to provide to service your customers. So I appreciate that.
And so with refurbishment, 20 years is realistic?
Is that for me, Karen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Like I say, the grand scheme of thing, we're always hitting that 18-year mark. As like I say, transit agencies have done in past, the Bramptons, the Niagara regions, oh God, they're slipping me right now, lots of them. But yeah, now we're looking at that 18-year plus. Are we going to 2 to 4 to 5 years? I know YRT's saying I like it for 4 or 5 years. Make it a 5-year bus and we'll keep them for 4. So that's kind of their way of thinking. In case they have to stretch out another year, they've got a bus that's going to cut it for another 12 months, sort of thing.
So Dave, you were mentioning this is Canada-wide. It's not just Ontario agencies looking at this option?
Yeah, I would have to assume, Karen. I mean, obviously, not obviously, but I'm very, very familiar with Ontario rules and regulations and transit agencies. But this to me would be going across Canada. I mean, we at the wonderful Opta show in April of this year, Karen, which you did a fantastic job of. We got to speak to Winnipeg Transit, and they are struggling maintaining their particular vehicles. With electric vehicles coming in, and they're having some issues, and they were looking at what we were doing to assist them, not to assist them, but to help them, be able to make service, to deliver service, and to maintain that reliable kind of level of service for their customers, because it's difficult all across the way, because it's just, like I say, before, it seemed to be pre-COVID, everything was pretty regimented. You budget, you purchase, you train, there's a part supply chain, it all goes together. But then since the last 3 years, it's become quite disruptive. And what this midlife overhaul and this life extension does at the end, it really kind of stabilizes that for the transit agencies, allowing them to kind of regroup and move forward, and then continue that plan moving forward, from the 12-year to the 18-year and potentially to 20 or 22. So it brings that stability back to the transit agency, which I think in transit agencies are looking for.
Thanks, Dave. I'll just mention to everyone again, you've been doing Zoom for a few years now. I assume everyone knows where the raise hand is. There we go, Doug, showing the way. Doug Parker?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think it is an interesting option to consider for an agency in the scenario where they are intending to move forward with fleet electrification, but they've encountered delays either to do with funding or to do with getting the necessary infrastructure in place. In the medium term, they expect to be able to proceed. So as an alternative to buying a new vehicle and sort of locking into non-electric for an even longer period of time.
Thanks, Doug.
Doug.
Thanks,
Dave,
Doug.
I know you've been an advocate for a long time. When I joined Opta in 2015, we had you doing presentations to the maintenance committee. But as you said, with COVID, with the disruptions to supply chains, are you seeing that some agencies that weren't looking at this as an option are now much more serious about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll turn that over to Tom, I think, from that perspective. But in my opinion, yes, they are. I mean, I sit on their advisory board, we meet quarterly, we have good discussions about what's happening in the industry. Tom is a lead in that when it comes to bus overhauling, bus refurbishing, and Gara as well. And so it's you're seeing that. It's just, I don't want to say electric technology is disruptive, but in a way it kind of is. And a lot of things are kind of happening at the same time. And at the same time, I said that twice, transit agency having to put service out on a regular basis. And so the thing that we talked about today, I think, gives that stability to the agency to kind of regroup and to have a very structured and clear and clean plan for the foreseeable future of them to kind of manage through this kind of technology and post-COVID kind of life that we're kind of all kind of living.
Thanks, Dave. We've got questions in the chat. I'm going to go to the raised hands there. Andrew?
Hi, everyone. Quick question from me. One, I work in the finance department of Durham region, and speaking with other folks on this topic, one concern over refurbishments that's come up before is if transit agencies don't have sufficient spare ratio within their fleet, the implication is handing over a bus to a refurbishment company, means that it's not available for service, and the time it takes to get a refurbishment done then puts pressure on the rest of the fleet if that spare ratio is not sufficient enough. So just wondering if you could speak a little bit to the time it takes and the parameters and more of the timing issues of how long it takes from initiation to completion.
Certainly, I'll take that one. Andrew, I can see why Durham has that spare ratio situation, and that's very unfortunate on all that. As mentioned, a bus is about an 8-week turnaround for structural overhaul. What we always do is make sure that the products needed for that program are on hand. So we deal with, say, yourselves or your team and say, okay, you've got 1, 3, 5, 6 buses you're going to do. Okay, what's your time frame? When do you want them done? How many could you afford? Basically none. Okay, so let's take 1 off you, but we're going to do 4. So, okay, we'll order all the parts in for 4. When the parts come in, give us 8 weeks per bus. That's the way it would kind of go. If you can afford more than 1, it's always better to have a couple in the loop, but I understand Durham's situation. So yeah, like as I said earlier, the structural overhaul is about an 8-week turnaround, and that's kind of cookie cutter. If we're getting into more product procurement like harnesses and diff parts and stuff like that, if it's not common, like ZF are a lot harder to get parts for than an Allison or a Eaton or Rockwell sort of thing, right? So yeah, an 8-week thing's kind of pretty easy to do, and we can just swap one for one. We've also done options before, Andrew, where we'd have a spare bus to enhance your fleet. So as we're doing that repair or that refurbishment, you're basically driving our bus around for a small lease price sort of thing, just to cover the cost of the operation sort of thing. So
That's great.
there's that too. Like we entertain anything. Whatever's going to make life easier for a customer is always on the table.
That's helpful information. Another concern that's come up kind of in follow-up is adequate competition in the market. This is more of a purchasing type question, and concerns that getting a competitive rate obviously depends on having multiple bidders in the market. I wonder if you could mention a little bit of the degree to which there's competition in the market for this type of service.
There is competition in the market. I'll say this straight up. I think most people know we're not the cheapest in town. We're the best in town. I think there'll always be people like when we state a price, we state unless it's something completely unknown, we stick to our price. Because we've done them too many times. We've done too many of them. When you get, I'm not slamming the competition, but there's a lot of people that maybe don't understand the process or they do business differently. I don't know. But there's ways you can send these RFPs out. We always say to the customer, RFP would be better. It's more of a weighted balance, prices and everything. You're going to show the wares, you're going to show your professionalism, you're going to show your equipment, you're going to show your employees, your standards, your safety, your bring that all into a weighing factor rather than price only. Tenders, people go out to tenders, and that's the bottom line is the number, right? And I know some municipalities have different thresholds on RFPs and tenders, and they can, unless it's above a certain amount or something like that, they got to go to a tender. But we always exercise or send out an RFI or an RFQ first, like a request for qualifications. What does this company have that's going to suffice? Have you toured these facilities? Let me look at your facilities. Show me your processes. Things like that. There's lots of things, a bit more legwork to do for the transit, but I hopefully that answer your question.
Andrew, thank you. That was a great question. Any follow-up?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you take a look at the chat, Al Pritchard has noted there. Chris, I do see your hand, but I'm going to go to the chat here for a question from Jeremy. Jeremy is asking, Dave, you mentioned about the operator seating. And Jeremy has a question wondering if overhauls of passenger seating is a regular part of midlife refurbishment, or are these done on more of an as-needed basis throughout the life of the vehicle?
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
We always like to do the passenger seating. That's kind of a given, especially the inserts. Get something clean on there. There's a lot of people sitting on that bus every day. Yes, that's usually part of the standard refurb. That and all the restraints for the wheelchairs, like all the AOD components, make sure they're all kind of overhauled or all the restraints are replaced. Yellow push buttons, things like that. Like the shopping list can go on forever. But yes, you always want to give. You're going to spend a half decent amount of money on a refurbishment. You want to make sure it looks like a new bus at the end of the day, and that's what we do. Yes, so passenger seat inserts are usually part of that scope.
Thanks for the question and thanks for the answer, Tom. Chris, thank you for your patience. Chris from Guelph Transit.
Hi, thank you. And yes, great presentation. And thank you, Tom, for hosting Guelph Transit about 3 months ago and giving us a tour of the facility. It was very illuminating.
You're very welcome.
And gave us a lot of confidence in your abilities. This question really isn't related particularly to bus refurbishment, but to another bus issue that's come up, and that's the pending retirement of 3G communications by both Bell and Rogers. And just wondering if other bus transit agencies are upgrading to 4G or 5G modems now, and whether or not you're experiencing what we're seeing, which is some pretty outrageous prices in order to do this. I'll just leave that question out there, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me, it'd be great to talk to you about it. Thanks.
Tom, is there anything any experience you have on that front?
Not I know.
Thanks for that, Chris. You've probably planted that. Maybe that's a topic of conversation at the upcoming maintenance committee meeting in Barrie, October 7th and 8th. A small plug for that Optum meeting quickly. Back to the chat, though, I wanted to pick up on a couple of comments Al Pritchard has put in there. Tom, a lot of your comments are about the financial side of things. It's about budgets. This is all about budgets. And Al makes the comment that using capital dollars to pay for midlife overhauls helps reduce the operating pressures. And the key is to include all major components and wear components that last more than 4 years. So that's great advice for those who may not have the years of experience that Dave and Tom and Al do.
Thanks for that, Al.
Dave, any part of that, any inside tricks on is it a capital budget item? Is it an operating budget item? Anything else to add to Al's comment there?
No, I think Al has got it right. I think that the capital program, you could loop in a lot of things within that capital, because I think finance understands that the vehicle is designed for 12 years. That's the design life of the vehicle. And then when you're keeping the vehicle after that, then you need to make whatever improvements you can while the bus is off the road. So it's an opportune time to be able to not just look after the body and not just look after the interior pieces, which is, obviously the operator's area is important. If the operator feels good about their vehicle, then that's a positive outcome. And the customer facing pieces, like Tom was saying earlier, seats, flooring, hand straps, push buttons, whatever, sensitive edges, all those kind of things. But then engines, transmissions, drive axles, brakes, air conditioning, all those things could be part of the package. And so it's a body and mechanical. The vehicle is off the road for that period of time. To speak to Durham's piece, to budget for, regular routine maintenance spares that an operating garage is going to have on a day-to-day basis. Then on top of that, you would then hopefully be able to eventually budget then for your capital spares that you would need then, so you're not affecting service or having to deplete your maintenance spare ratio by identifying a number of vehicles that you budgeted for, already purchased as part of your fleet, but then can be removed from service, go into the midlife overhaul program, have all the mechanical and the body work completed without affecting your day-to-day operation. So, I've said a lot, but I think that's what Al said is correct. I think what other people are saying is correct. By bundling mechanical and body at the same time, putting it under capital, in some cases, in some agencies, it's maybe easier to get capital money than it is to get operating money. And sometimes it's easier to push capital or pull capital than it is to push or pull operating. So I think then, those particular agencies could benefit absolutely from a midlife overhaul by bundling.
Wonderful. Thank you again. Last call for questions. And I'll note again, pointing to the chat, I've just put a link in there for the fall maintenance committee meeting. As I mentioned, MTB Transit Solutions and Dave, whether he's with the TTC, whether he was with York Region Transit, he's now with Talk Transit, a wealth of experience that he shares at those fall maintenance committee meetings. If you've never attended them before, they're phenomenal opportunities for just roundtable discussions, whatever is your burning issue. It may be a bus refurb issue, a supply chain question, or others experiencing some of the same frustrations that you're experiencing, some of which Tom and Dave were talking about today. Those are the kind of topics that are covered at that fall maintenance committee meeting. And we're going to be at Barrie Transit on Tuesday, October the 8th our suppliers like MTB Transit Solutions sponsor a dinner the evening before. And so if you're traveling and you're able to come in on the Monday before, that networking opportunity is really good, just as this has been here today. Tom and Dave, we value your expertise, and these Opta Live webinars are always popular. We thank you for bringing this content to us today. As we said, the session here has been recorded, and we will be posting it to the new Opta website. We invite you to take a look. It was launched today, and MTB is one of our first advertisers on the new website. So thank you for that as well. Again, always sharing your expertise and being a valued part of the transit community in Ontario. So with that, we'll make sure that everyone attending today is notified when we've got the recording online. Tom and Dave, any last thank yous?
I'd just like to thank everybody for attending and taking time out of their valuable day. I hope they got something out of this. I can be reached anytime. I think most of you know me, but if not, you'll find me on the new Opta website, just like I was on the old Opta website. But my contact information is on the presentation. And thank you
We
again.
will share that with everyone as well.
Karen and Hina, thank you very much as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.